excited to have you here and to show you what everyone at the team has been working on. And without further ado, here's Jeff. He's going to take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Ariel. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. One thing that would be great just off the top so we can make sure everyone can hear us, if you could open up the chat window if you've got a second and just let us know if you can hear us okay and see our presentation there, the Google presentation. Yep, getting some good feedback. Awesome. All right, now we can rock and roll with confidence. Great. So thanks for the introduction there, Ariel. As mentioned, my name is Jeff McQueen. I'm one of the founders and the CEO here at Accelo, and I'm really excited to share with you all a sneak peek at our new scheduling module. We're going to be covering some awesome ground today, and we're also going to be doing something we've never done before in terms of how we actually roll out and give you, our awesome users, a chance to take advantage of some great new stuff in the product. So looking forward to taking you through that. If you've got questions, please ask them as we go through using the Q&A section of the webinar, or if you like the chat system, whichever you prefer. And we'll probably get to them all at the end rather than sort of as we go. But potentially we can answer them as we go if they flick up in a way that doesn't break the flow. All right, so let's get into it. In terms of our agenda, what we're going to do today is first of all, set a bit of context with an introduction to what this is all about and why. We're then going to cover the four main parts of this upgrade. The first one is introducing for the first time work scheduling or work schedule screens. For those folks who have a project management background, this is very much akin to project portfolio management. The next thing we'll be doing is upgrading the team scheduling experience to fit a much more holistic and inclusive view and grid interface, which we'll show you. We're then going to, the next phase of the upgrade is giving the ability to take control and change things, because the first step is actually to get them in a way you can use for reporting and insight. And then the last step is going beyond scheduling of tasks and being able to schedule almost anything with a budget of time in Accelo. So we're going to cover all of that today. We'll then talk about our preview and release timetable and finish up with some Q&A. All right, so in terms of context setting or the introduction, managing schedules and utilization is absolutely critical for the success of any service business or team. And the reason for that is basically the highest cost parts of running a service business or team are its people, the amazing people who do great work and deliver services for clients. Now, if those team members or those people have too much work scheduled, then things run late, clients are unhappy, folks are burning the midnight oil, lots of problems, lots of headaches. It's not a good situation to be in. Conversely, if team members don't have enough work going on, if they're not scheduled enough, then the business loses actually a lot of money. Most businesses in the services sector, they spend about 60 to 70 cents of every dollar that they make in revenue back out the door as labor costs, whether it be salaries or related on costs. And so if you're paying that money out every 2 weeks in payroll and people aren't busy on productive stuff, then that can sink the business really fast. Now, Accelo has had functionality in what we call our team scheduling module for a while. And our users, have taken advantage of it because honestly, a lot of folks, and certainly my experience from running a services business years ago was really, a big spreadsheet that you had to manually update, which is miserable. And so while Accelo's team scheduling is definitely a big step beyond that, the reality is it does have some limitations, and those limitations we've over the last little while seen in a more and more pronounced way. So one of the examples of a limitation is that team scheduling currently only allows you to see a handful of team members on one screen. So as you can see with the screenshot on the right there, that's loaded up, and we've got 7 folks that we can see there of what their utilization on the schedule looks like. It's also challenging because it only allows you to see each day for a single week, or if you want to go to the weeks view, you can see up to 5 weeks represented on the screen. But that makes it difficult if you're working on a project or a timeline that stretches out over a quarter, 3 months or something like that. This is not enough information on the screen, both in terms of volume of people and length of time. It also has the limitation that it only supports viewing by individual team members. So you can't compare multiple projects. You're always looking through this prism of show me a list of people and compare them to each other. Instead of, well, actually, I want to see a list of all of the projects that we've got going on for team A or team B, and being able to compare them and work out where you've got some gaps or alternatively where things are a bit too hot. And then lastly, the scheduling functionality in Accelo currently only handles tasks. So time that is on a task, where there's estimated time remaining, and where that task has a deadline. Because obviously if it's due in infinity and then you try and spread out the 5 hours across infinity, you end up with effectively, you know, 0 time per day to stack up there. And so these are all the shortcomings we're aware of and we're working to fix with this upgrade. Right, so the first thing we're going to cover, and this is the first thing we're actually going to be rolling out through this new preview method we're going to be following it with this rollout, is how to view work schedules, which many folks will look at as a derivative or as a solution to the challenges of project portfolio management. Okay, so seeing work across the business, looking both forward into the future with forecast work, as well as looking back and seeing what was done, what was the work logged in the past, hasn't been as easy as it should have been in Accelo up until now with this new improvement. Now, with this new feature, you'll be able to view a list of projects, tickets, retainers, and even sales and client tasks if they have those, you know, deadlines and time remaining, all at once in a single screen stacked one on top of the other. Now, of course, that's going to be way too much information for folks to just, you know, sort of dump it all out at once. So you'll actually be able to go and fetch whichever ones you're interested in and stack them one on top of the other and see as they compare to each other. Now, by being able to see this work next to each other, you'll be able to have one of the big missing benefits of project portfolio management, the ability to effectively have a combined, smart, and adaptive Gantt chart. And more than just a planning tool, which is what a lot of folks have been limited to when it comes to project portfolio management, where you're like, oh, okay, I'll look at what the future looks like of all of my projects, and that's nice. This actually becomes dynamic as people do work, as they re-estimate time remaining, then the schedules will automatically adapt and adjust. Similarly, you can also look at the work that has been done, not just the work that's scheduled to be done. So you can actually use this as a historical reporting tool to be like, all right, what work was done across this group of projects in the last week or the last month or the last quarter? Because you can also choose the timeline or the date range to suit whatever's, you know, in your interest. Lastly, you'll also be able to save lists of these work items. So in Accelo, we generally have used this concept of saving the rule or the recipe when we have something like a filter, a save filter. And so that says, look, I want to find everything that's, you know, got, you know, in status X or in category Y or is managed by you know, person, you know, Tony or whatever. With this functionality, what we're going to be doing is allowing you to save a specific list, an ordered specific list of work. And so while it doesn't have the benefits of being dynamic in the sense that a filtered list allows you, or a filtered rule allows, as soon as a new project becomes active, it will automatically drop in. The benefit of these lists is that you'll actually be able to take control of a list of work that you want to really focus on. And of course, you'll be able to add to the list, remove from the list, and bring into the list any of the other aspects like, you know, currently active projects, add them to my list, please. So it's going to be a new interface, and we're interested to hear how you guys like it and how you benefit from it. All right, now let's jump across into the live demo together. So here we have a live demo of the new functionality. This is just using some test data. We'll actually have it going live and available for you later this week, ideally, with real data in there. And what I'm showing here is a list of projects. So I've got a couple of test projects here. This Acme company developed secret theory. And I can see in this case that I'm looking at all of the work across that entire project. So that's all of the sub-milestones and subtasks, all of the allocations of work under that project are all being grouped by the person who's responsible for or been assigned to do that work. And I can see in the interface here that I've got this grid-based view where I can see individuals So Bo, for example, I can see that on July 4th, he's got 1 hour and 6 minutes worth of time assigned or scheduled to be worked on. On July the 5th, he's got 1 hour and 19. Then nothing for him until July 11th, when he's going to pull a really long day with 13:24, and then a pretty heavy day again on the 12th, and another even heavier day on the 13th, and then nothing until the 22nd, for example. So this, Bo could actually have that work happening on a couple of different tasks that are stacking together. It could be time that's been scheduled for him to be on site with a client. So it could be an activity, a scheduled activity that got created on that project for Bo, that he's got to go out on site and spend, 10 hours doing a number of different workshops back to back for Bo. And so we're able to see that work by team member inside of a project. What you're also able to do is pivot from the staff or the team member view to move across and look at the task-based view. And so what I've just done with that quick pivot is now I'm able to see all of the tasks that are happening and when they're happening through that project. And this is a particular milestone that I've expanded here. I can track that guy back up. And so what I'm able to see is in the big kind of solid chunks here, that's the overall project. The milestones are a little more subtle in terms of how we fill in the screen, so you can see much more easily how they grow, how they inherit their information. And then we can compare projects to each other. So if I want to shrink this up, I can just see this is what my whole list of projects looks like and how busy things are. Now, the interesting thing about projects when you're looking at the project work is there isn't like a natural denominator. So we don't know what 100% looks like. To pick an extreme example, you might have a company with 20 staff, and that company might all be having everyone work full-time on one really, really big project for a big client. So the number of hours that those 20 people can work over the course of a week is something like, I might get the math wrong here, but I think it's like 800 hours. And so if you're looking at a day view, then you're going to consider anything that's above, 50 hours, that's above 150 hours as being a really large number for that day. Conversely, you might have a team of 10 that are working on 50 small projects in parallel. And so any given project that's over not 150 hours a day, but maybe over 10 hours a day might be considered to be heavily loaded and something you want to watch out for. So we allow you to configure how heavy you want your numbers to be. So let's say in this case, we want 20 hours to be a big number. You can then go through and change that. And what it'll do is it'll change the gradients. You might not have caught that, but we basically say by changing 20 to be our max number, that ones like 2 hours and 4 hours and 12 and a half hours become a lighter color, and the ones over 20 get the full green. And then I can potentially move this up to 40, for example. Let's see if there's many that are over 40. Well, there's a couple here, the 50, the 60, the 30s, but everything else grays out. And as you change these numbers, that'll actually be remembered for you as a user of what your preference should be there. Now, here we've been looking at a day view. Let's say we want to switch across and look at the week. Let's say we tend to be the kind of organization that organizes on a weekly basis. So this is an example where we've got a bit more polishing that we need to do in terms of, sort of it's only filling in a third of the screen here. But this shows you how you've got now those same work entries that we had before now summed together on a weekly basis rather than a daily basis. And you can toggle and switch between the two of those really easily. And you can switch between the staff and the user on this, information under a project or the expanded view as you drill down. The other thing I wanted to show is that it's not just handling scheduled work, which is things that sit in your calendar, for example, like, Bo going on site for a 10-hour day, but also automatically scheduled work. So that's the time that a task gets automatically put into your workload so that you can get it finished on time. It also includes committed work and work done. And I can take the work done out here if I'm in my worldview of looking at, okay, I just want to see all the stuff that is in the future. Or alternatively, I could include work done and take some of these other guys out and just look at, and while this data is a little bit, sort of test data, just because your work done list for the future won't be very much, you'll be able to then go back and look in time, in history, And of course, as you change your numbers, you might want to make your coloring different as well. And so that's where you're able to be able to see project by project to compare what's actually happened through the past, and should be really handy and easy to work with there. I've got a couple of really quick questions here that I will tackle while I'm on the screen. One of them is, what are the numbers next to each of the people or each of the sort of work items, like the project or the milestone, or if we switch across into the people view, that's the total number of hours that are scheduled for that person on that particular project. So this is the person on the project. If we switch across in the tasks, it's tasks for the project, for example. And someone's also asked a good question. I'm using project as a word here, sort of in shorthand. If I wanted to take more time and expend more breath, I should be saying project, ticket, or retainer. All of the work. In fact, it even includes sales. So if you do pre-sales work and you need to create tasks for folks in a pre-sales capacity, and say, hey, I need you to actually work this up and create a task with a deadline and a bunch of hours against it, you can see those here as well. So it's really any work in the system. This is really the work focus. I just tend to use the word project as a bit of a shorthand for work, because a lot of our clients are very, focused on the scheduling of their project work, but ticket work tends to be more reactive. So that's why I haven't, sort of verbalized that quite as much. Another little comment or question that's come through is around weekends, and the weekends are hidden by default, but they are expandable. And we also, the system itself is actually smart enough to handle things like public holidays, or non-work days, however you choose to describe or define them in your account. So that's all part of the configuration settings of your Accelo account there. All right, let's head across and go back into the presentation now, and we'll look at the next section. So the next section now is, we've talked about how you view and compare workload on a per project, or as I should have said, ticket and retainer basis. So whatever your work is, now we're going to look at the team members, the people's load. Let's see what they've got going on. So team scheduling in terms of Accelo, as mentioned at the top, isn't great at showing larger teams or longer time periods. If you've got more than 7 staff to compare, and more than 5 weeks, it's a bit manual to work with. And so with this new feature, what you'll be able to do is see and compare the workloads for dozens of team members and look at dozens of days or weeks at once in the same screen. You'll also be able to easily add users to this screen by group, skill, and also by save filters. So things like this, by save filters, I mean like, people I manage, or folks in a certain office, or whatever the priorities you have in your save filter land. This will become the replacement for the team scheduling feature once it also includes the adjusting and assigning work functionality, which I'll get to in a couple of slides. That's like part 3 of this major upgrade that we're doing. All right, so let's have a look. Now, this is one that the engineer, I can't show the live demo for, but that's okay, it's not too far away. So what will happen in this screen is you'll actually be using exactly the same screen as we were on before, but what we'll have is a toggle up in the top left between team and work. So what you saw before, what we demoed live, was actually the work tab, or the work option up in the top left here. This, what we're showing in the screenshot, is what happens when you choose your team. And so when you choose your team, you'll be able to, first of all, add people to the list. So you're able to search and click on add new staff. You'll also be able to search by groups or by skills. And so you're able to go and add folks in there. The key is you'll end up with a bunch of people. So even if you search by skill, let's say it's designer, and you choose designer, what you really do is grab every staff member or every user who has a skill of being a designer. Your rows here, when you're looking at the team view, every row is always going to be a person, a user, and only the professional users as well. So your collaborators can't really, sort of have scheduled work, and contractors, you don't control what their schedules are. So again, it's really the key people, those professional users. And so every user here, a professional user, gets their own row. You'll also be able to remove folks from the list if you add them by accident. So if you add the designer skill and then you see someone come in and you go, oh, they're not a very good designer, I don't even want to consider them. Or maybe they're a designer of a different type, you know, you're looking for, you know, sort of architectural design, and it turns out that the office web designer got dropped in, but you're not going to be able to assign them work to work on a construction or an architecture project. You'll be able to remove individuals specifically. And then once you've got a list of people that you're really happy with, similarly to the work screen, you'll be able to go through and sort of get that list organized. So what we're showing here is the workload on a weekly grouped basis over time, and you can see that you've got your grid here of what's going on. And what's cool is that we'll actually be able to, you know, sort of designate, sorry, the utilization threshold. If you remember how on the other screen we had, you know, maximum number of hours, and then we would, you know, have the greens change reflecting that. Well, with this screen, we actually know what somebody's availability looks like because it's part of their user configuration, whether it includes their vacations or the fact that they only work Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, or whether they always have a half day Thursday off because they're finishing, you know, their degree or having to pick up the kids or something like that. We know what their availability is. So you don't have to specify what the threshold or the number should be. Instead, you're actually able to specify what your color should be. So we know when somebody goes over their utilization threshold, and we can then reflect that with this, in this example, the red color to be like, oh, warning, we've got a bit of a problem. We can also designate whether or not you want to include or show the weekends in terms of somebody's utilization there. Now, similarly to the other screens, you're able to choose the type of work that you want to represent, choose the period you're viewing, and also your date selector here. So that's how you'll be able to see the work that somebody has going on. Now, the next natural thing is to think, well, what happens, what is that 120 hours in that 1 week? What the hell's going on? How's this happened? And so what you can then do is you'll be able to click on the cell and load up in the right-hand side here. This will slide in as a tile or as a card that slides in from the side, overlaid, and shows you this particular user on this particular week, what's their, you know, number of hours. And actually it's a slight mismatch here, but it'll the hours will be represented. So, you know, it'd show that Brent's working 24 hours in the grid, but the color would be red because it's he's overutilized, for example. And you can then look on a days of the week basis. If you've come in to see Bren on a weekly view, you'd be able to come in and see which days Bren's the most heavily overloaded, and if there are any days that are nice and happy or harmless. And then as you look down, you can see, hey, well, Brent's got some time that's scheduled and some time that's committed. A bunch of stuff is automatically scheduled in there, and some stuff has come in from his external calendar. So that representation will be for what the heck Brent has going on. So you can quickly and easily see what's going on there, and then you'll be able to go in and adjust it. Which actually brings us into the next section, which is adjusting the schedules. So viewing the work across the organization by you know, the grouped by project or work, or grouped by the team is really awesome, but taking control is even better. And so with this new feature, after we've got the screens in place for the grids and the ability to see the work, then you'll be able to go in and from these screens assign and reassign work to team members, including for the first time the ability to do bulk or repeated committing or scheduling. So that has the advantage of being able to come through and say, okay, I want to say, all right, we've got somebody who has work assigned to them. And let's say it's a project they're working on that they're going to spend the next 6 weeks doing, you know, sort of 5 hours a day, or maybe it's 5 hours a couple of times a week. You'll be able to go through and choose the frequency of that. I'll show you some more in that in the next slide. You'll also be able to change assignments and adjust deadlines and see the impact in real time. So as you adjust workloads and assign work, you'll be able to see that take effect across the scheduled list, particularly the ability to see unassigned work go from unassigned across to people who are actually now designated to work on it. And once we've got this in place, it allows us to retire the current team scheduling screen to deliver you much more power and intelligence. So as I was talking about it, when it comes to assigning work, there's a couple of dimensions. One of them that's not represented here is actually choosing who's going to be responsible for a particular task. But what we're actually showing here with these two screenshots is inside of that actually taking more control of the work assignments. So you've got the ability to come in and say, all right, when I've got a particular user, in this case, it's Eva Mendoza, and she's working on a project that's got 10 hours against it, I can go through and I can commit on a particular day for Eva to work a certain amount of hours on this project. And what I could do is actually change that from the 10 hours 45. I could say, you know what, I want Eva to work every 3 days. I want it to work for 3 hours on that and see what's going on. And we can see a summary of what's going on there for Eva. And then that will represent out. So this is a great example. And then, sorry, what I should have said is you can also go through and choose, you can see in the bottom right diagram, to schedule work instead of just having it committed. Because a commitment just sits at some point, someone's got to get some things done that day. But once you choose scheduled, you're actually specifying a start and end time. So if you have a project kickoff and you want to have a regular Wednesday meeting between 9:30 and 10:30 to work with the main key parts of the project team, what you'll be able to do is actually go through and schedule that time for those people, put it into the calendar, and then have it be part of their schedule, as well as synchronize then with their Google Apps or Office 365 or Exchange or Outlook calendar. All right, and then the last thing to show is going beyond tasks when it comes to scheduling. So Accelo's scheduling feature at the moment is limited to tasks that need to have that deadline, because as I mentioned, if the amount of time between now and when it's due is infinity, then the time remaining broken out by day isn't much use. And so the idea is to have a deadline and an estimate of the amount of time remaining, so that you can then start to automatically schedule and have work get built out manually. However, there are numerous other places in Accelo where you can budget work with deadlines, such as milestones. A milestone has a deadline, it has a certain number of hours, it has someone who's a manager. And so being able to have milestones, tickets, and retainer periods as part of your workload and the forecast, even if they don't have tasks yet, is really important. And we're looking forward to bringing that to you all. Additionally, you might even want to assign work and even have tasks be split or shared. So you can say, okay, this milestone here has got 30 hours on it, but 40% of it's going to be Sally and 60% of it's going to be Bob. The last part of this major scheduling work will be a big upgrade on the back end to be able to improve the way that we track, forecast, and schedule this non-task work, so it can be much more inclusive. All right, we're almost there. In terms of the release timetable, we're actually trying something new. So in the background here at Accelo over the last many months now, our really talented security and DevOps team have been working hard on a lot of system and operational improvements so that we can be truly continuously integrated and have our review, approval, QA, and testing processes then be able to push out to the product mainline with confidence. And that's how we're able to ship code multiple times a day. So if you're not aware, with Accelo here, we actually upgrade the product and make minor changes, improvements, bug fixes, whatever they happen to be, at least once a day, sometimes 2 or 3 times in a day. And so with all of that awesome pipelining and systems work in place and proven, now we're in the position to be able to deliver a preview, so that as we continue to build and test this new feature, because we're not changing existing stuff, so we don't have to sort of draw a line in the sand, we're actually able to build and test, ship to production, and you'll be able to follow along. You'll actually be able to use this functionality as it takes shape. It'll also give you an opportunity to share your feedback. So we've set up this special feedback email address of scheduling-feedback@accelo.com. And so as you're using this new functionality and sharing your ideas or saying, hey, this particular project here is really laggy for me, or it seems like a bug that it hasn't picked up this time that I just put in, or something like that, you'll be able to share that feedback and those insights via that special email address. And what we're also doing for the first time is having that feedback go straight to the dev team. It'll go via our Zapier and Slack integration. So kind of be nice. Say, you know, the dev team have been putting in tremendous hours and will continue to do so to bring this to life for you. Yeah, please just be nice to them. The viewing of work schedules, which is what we demoed towards the top of this session, that's the feature that's closest to release or availability. We're aiming to have that able to be used by you all by the end of this week. And obviously scheduling is one of those things that's tied to the premium tier of Accelo. So that will still apply in this case. And we'll actually be making it available for these premium accounts via a special hidden link. So it won't be part of the UI, it won't be distracting your colleagues, it won't be getting in the way, we won't be taking anything away from you. But if you do want to play with it, if you want to be part of this preview and see it as it takes shape and provide you feedback, you'll be able to do that. Now, the hidden link, the URL itself, is something that we'll be sharing. First of all, as soon as it's ready, we'll be posting to our Accelo community. And if you're not familiar with our user community, or if you haven't joined, I really recommend this as a great time to jump in. So if you go to accelo.com/community, it'll redirect you to a Google group. And you can sign up there and join a community where other Accelo users are able to share advice and tips and hints. Sometimes there's a bit of whinging and complaining. And we'll be using that channel to let you know as soon as this is ready for you to play with. If you don't want to join the community, don't fear. Ariel's email updates that go out to all of our key users every 2 weeks, there'll be one of those next Wednesday. And so we'll have all of the details for you there too. But if you're someone who wants to get the inside scoop, definitely check out and join the community. Things that we're working on this week, we need to fix the way the search works, including the ability to pull in save filters so you can get a list of your active projects, for example. And there's also a bunch of little things around performance and a bunch more debugging that we want to do before opening it up. That's why we're not sort of saying, hey, have at it today and here's the link. This is a sneak peek, but it's very close. The next step, and the team have been working away really hard on this already, that we'll be bringing to life is the team schedule. And as mentioned, it'll actually be a new button that'll appear up in the top left of the same screen that you'll be able to be previewing and playing with from the end of this week. So as we bring this to life, as we roll this out, you'll be able to see it and play with it as it comes to life. And then the next steps, which are assigning work and going beyond tasks, they're, you know, the next things after we get the team piece over the next few weeks out. So they'll continue through July and August. We'll keep you updated regularly with Ariel's bi-weekly emails, as well as updates to our blog. And if you haven't seen the updates blog yet, highly recommend checking that guy out too. You can get an RSS feed of updates there. We publish that every week, pretty much, with the updates that have gone out over that previous weekly period. If you haven't checked it out, definitely have a look. It's pretty awesome. It's one of the things that just amazes me about how impressive our team are, and the work rate and what they're able to do, because we share with you there lots of details about the little things that you might not notice that we do to try and make Accelo better. All right, I think that's the end of the program stuff. So I'll hand over to Ariel now, and let's see if we can't tackle some of the questions you've got.
All right, so let's see. We have a question from Paul, or no, so an anonymous user. All right.
Ooh,
so the question is, how do you suggest handling a start and stop task? Example, one that is 4 hours a day for 2 weeks, then no work for a week, then 4 hours a day for another 2 weeks. Should that be two separate tasks?
So anonymous lurker, that's a good question. There's a couple of different options. So it's not a bad idea to have that as two tasks if you just want to let the automatic scheduling do its job. However, if you want to take control and you actually want to commit some time, there's no reason for you to have that as two tasks. You can create it as a single task and then actually commit time. And while that's not so easy right now, because you can only commit a certain number of hours to a day for a certain individual user, with this new stuff that I demonstrated, the ability for you to effectively have sort of recurring things, that will make life a lot easier for you. They're not true recurring items, but there'll certainly be the ability to say, right, I'm going to do 4 hours a day for 2 weeks. and you'll be able to put that block in, and then you'll be able to create another assignment on the same task for another 4 hours a day for another 2 weeks, specifying that date.
Okay, and then we have another question from Nosterout. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Can you choose a staff member? Oh, sorry, never mind. Questions answered with team schedule.
Yeah, that one I think was a timing one. We were Nosterout. We were just showing the work screen, and then Nosterout wanted to see what we ended up showing in the team scheduling, the second part. So
cool. So we got that earlier. So the next one's from Joshua. As a project manager, I would like to be able to give the client a timing for the project based on the information from the project plan, budget hours and required skills versus available hours with the required skills. Any plans for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key there, Joshua, is to probably tighten that up a little bit, and not really something we can tackle in this forum. I understand certainly there's the desire to be transparent with customers, which is what the client portal's around. But in terms of the details in that question, you know, it's quite really how long is that piece of string? And so, yeah, I can't comment really about that piece of string. It's a little bit too vague and broad to comment on, unfortunately.
And Tim had a question. Do any of these changes affect a developer designer's view of their task list, either in the UI or in how their work is prioritized?
Tim, not at the moment. However, everything is tied together. So the UI for the task list and that task board is something that will be getting an upgraded improvement over the next couple of months as well. The key, I think, is that you're really in these screens identifying workloads, and then what that does is feed through into the time commitments. And I think once we've got this in place, and our users are able to be much more active in terms of how they make time commitments happen for their users, or inform users that, hey, you guys need to be doing 4 hours on Tuesday on this. Making that clearer from a UI point of view that, okay, look, this guy here has 4 hours today. You really need to get onto this is a priority for us.
And Hannah had a question. You mentioned that the preview will be available on a separate link. Will it be pulling in live data from our core Accelo account? So all live project data, etc. Yeah,
great question, Hannah. That's exactly what it means. So with this magical link, it'll actually be in your primary account, only available to people that know about it. And it's very much a read-only screen until we get to that phase 3 part of the product upgrade. So, but yeah, it'll be, real live data. So as you do work, and as your team do work, and as you create new projects, you'll be able to see all that take shape in the scheduling screen. It'll be really cool.
And Mike had a question. The preview looks good. Thank you, Mike. Any plans to incorporate the ability to print any of these schedules? Today, the only way to print Gantt charts is to do a screenshot and then print, which doesn't look clean enough to give to clients.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Mike. I really wish printers would have unlimited width and depth of the paper that you can put through them. Then everything would fit in really well with a scrolling screen-based world. The reality is printing is just a diabolical nightmare with anything that's coming from a screen. So yeah, we don't have any plans to solve that yet. It's a diabolical, massive challenge, and yeah, sorry. The real key to solving that when it comes to giving your clients access is going to be the upgrade to the client portal. So your clients will actually be able to come in and, depending on the permissions and rules you set them, be able to access these screens and see them with whatever level of visibility you want to give them. So they're actually interacting with them and they're live. But yeah, trying to solve for printing is not something that we're prioritizing, frankly.
And Mitch wants to know if this PowerPoint is available after the webinar. Yes, you'll all get a recording of this webinar for your reference, or if you want to share it with your team, so no worries about that. Dave wants to know, it will be important for us to be able to view contractors in the scheduling view as well. Otherwise, total hour count for projects will not be accurate. We do schedule their work similar to how we schedule for internal resources.
Cool, thanks for that, Dave. We'll have a look at how to tackle that. I think it will be something that, just thinking off the top of my head, will be part of how you would represent the users for the project or the work, like that project work view. But on the other screen where you're looking at team, because we don't have the denominator of knowing the number of hours that somebody should be having, the ability to actually set color grids and things like that starts to become impossible. So I think what you're looking for there, which is the ability to see scheduling of folks on projects as contractors get assigned work will work. But I think the ability to say, okay, contractor Sally, what's she got going on in terms of how busy is Sally? Because they're a contractor, effectively they get sent work and get it done as soon as they can. But it's not really a case of knowing that you've got Sally for 8 hours a day, 4 days a week. If that's the case, then Sally really shouldn't be a contractor. She should be a regular user.
And looks like that's it. Let's check the chat really quick. Paul wanted to know, are weekends not considered? Oh, so we covered that. So they're expandable or awesome. Not deciding what you want to do. Oh, so, and Paul, another question. Are there plans to add forecasting resources for opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. So the kind of holy grail after getting all of this is the work that's committed and managing all of your traffic and your utilization and all that great stuff. The next step after that, when it comes to resourcing and forecasting, is to say, you know what, we've got this, quote we've got in Accelo for a sale or an opportunity, and if that comes off, then what's it going to do to our schedules? What's it going to mean to our utilization? And so after we get this bit, nailed that we've covered today, that'll be the next natural step when it comes to resourcing and forecasting of schedules. How we implement that, there's a couple of, we're kicking around a few ideas, and probably a great thing to kick off a discussion in the community about. There's a couple of ways to do it. So one of them is you can, add opportunities selectively, just as the kind of spitballing or the scenario game. So you go, all right, this one opportunity, if it comes off, what happens? The other way to look at it is to say, okay, if I've got an opportunity or all of my opportunities, let me drop them in here weighted by their probability. So if they're 50% likely to come off, then if it was 100 hours of the work, you might drop it in as 50 hours for a project and kind of underweight that project. So there are a couple of scenarios that we're exploring, but certainly getting the work done here is the precursor to being able to layer in that future work, that potential work. So excited to explore that too, because certainly I appreciate the importance of you're out there talking to a client and they're like, okay, when can we do this? You want to be able to look at a schedule. Or alternatively, you're sitting there with the other kind of executive members of the team going, well, a utilization rate looks terrible in August. But of course, there's a bunch of projects we're aiming and hoping to close by then. If they close with a certain close rate or weighted by their percentage of probability, how busy does our August look? And that can very much change your salesmanship attitude, because you might be like, actually, August looks like a disaster. Even if they all close, we're still underutilized. Or conversely, you look at it and go, holy moly, August is actually going to be smashed, because while these haven't dropped yet, we've got really high confidence on a lot of work that's just going to have us completely overloaded. So the ability to see over the horizon for work that hasn't yet become structured, scheduled, billable work is something we're very attuned to.
So it looks like that's all the questions. Thank you everyone for joining us. We loved having you here. We're really excited to keep pushing forward. And like Jeff mentioned, we're gonna continue pushing out new versions and releases. So please keep up to date with, keep an eye out for emails from us. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks once again. See you all later. Bye.